Good morning. The doves are cooing, the roosters are cock-a-doodle-dooing, and today it's time to talk about technical chewing. We are going to discuss foot switches and foot matches. Foot matching is simply putting both feet on the same foothold. Both feet use the same hold at the same time. Foot switching, however, is when you place one foot on the hold and then remove it in order to place the other foot on that hold. You are not using that foothold with both feet necessarily at the same time. Oftentimes, a foot switch will incorporate a foot match. The feet will match on a particular hold in order to facilitate the foot switch. In other words, you put one foot on the hold, then you put the other foot on the hold with it briefly in order to take the first foot off, and you've effectively completed a foot switch by using a foot match. There are a couple of different types of discrete foot switches. The first is simply a little hop. With a foot hop, you have one foot on the foothold, and then in order to switch it, you give yourself a little hop off that foothold, unweight the first foot, and then put the second foot onto the foothold and drop down onto it. This is a very simple move. It's very basic. Many beginners use this technique right from the beginning. However, if the foothold is not very good, you run the risk of popping your foot off, because when you push off to hop off of that hold with the first foot, you actually may slip. You actually are putting more than body weight on that. The pressure on that hold is greater than body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds and you hop and press off that hold, you're applying more than 150 pounds to that hold. And if the hold is rounded, sloping, or has poor friction, you could just slide your foot right off of it. Also, as you land on that hold with the other foot, you're landing on it with more than your body weight, which means if it's not a great hold, your foot may just pop. Now, the quality of your handholds plays a big part in the discrete foot switch. If you have good handholds, you can put more weight on those holds and take more weight with your arms, taking the weight off your feet, so that your hop and your subsequent landing don't put as much force on the hold, sometimes as little as a couple of pounds. The most extreme example is if you're on an extreme overhang with really good handholds and you can just hang by your arms, lift one foot off the hold, and then dangle there while you put the other foot onto the hold. You don't even need a hop. Foot matches are easy on very large holds, as these holds readily accommodate 2 feet. You simply place the second foot onto the hold next to the first. On medium holds, you can still place the feet next to each other on the same hold surface. You just need to be prudent about where you place the first foot. Don't plunk it onto the middle of the hold, lest you not leave room enough for your second foot. Try to place it on the rightmost or leftmost end of the hold. You can place your left foot on the leftmost part of the hold, leaving room for your right foot to share. Try to step onto the far end of the hold to leave room for your second foot. However, if it's too difficult to reach the farthest part of the hold, you can place your first foot on the closer part, and then you can cross your second foot over as you shift your hips through the move, placing your second foot onto the far side of your first foot. It's a fancy move, and usually only necessary on hard-to-reach traverse-like moves. The pivot is a useful foot switch technique that avoids the higher downward forces that the hop imposes on the foothold. To execute a pivot switch, you place a little bit of the second foot onto the hold next to the first foot. You pivot the first foot out of the way as you pivot the second foot into its place. You are swiveling the feet on the hold. Similar to the pivot, the outside edge roll rotates one foot off the hold as you rotate the other one to take its place. In this case, instead of swiveling the feet on the hold, you flip them up and down like wings. You place the outside edge of the second foot onto the hold next to the first foot that is already using the hold. Roll the first foot onto its outside edge, flipping it up to remove the sole of the shoe from the hold. Now roll the second foot flat onto the hold, putting the sole of the second shoe onto the space just vacated by the first. Another discrete foot switch involves toeing the wall. Your first foot occupies the foothold. You take your second foot and press your toe against the wall, just a smidge above the hold you want to step on. Taking your body weight with your hands and toe press, you remove your first foot from the hold while gently lowering the ball of your other foot onto the hold. You can use this technique in combination with a pivot maneuver, such as Sarah demonstrates here. Foot matches are useful in tricky balance situations. In this example, the climber will use 3 discrete footholds to traverse from left to right. Doing so requires a fancy schmancy step-through, which can be efficient in reducing the number of moves you make, but such a move places a lot of weight on your handholds, which, if they aren't very positive, could spit you off. A foot match and switch maneuver avoids this awkward cross-through, keeps the hips low and under the handholds, and provides for a more secure traverse. Foot matches and switches really come into play when clipping protection. Often a foot and handhold sequence to climb through a section do not correspond to the body position you will need to clip. The holds make for good balance in climbing through the moves, but clipping with your feet on those holds puts you off balance. You might barn door off, or the reach to the clip is too far for where your feet are placed. Switching feet enables you to make the reach to the clip and do so in proper balance. In this example, the climb uses a hold for your left foot, but the bolt is far to the right. Clipping the bolt from these footholds is off balance and reachy. Switching feet to put the right foot on the hold allows you to lean to the right while counterbalancing by flagging your left leg. Once clipped, you switch feet again, using that hold to push off with your left foot back into the climbing sequence.